People love talking about boundaries, right? It's a big conversation. Yet I'm not always sure that anyone really knows what it means to set a boundary. And sadly, the advice shifts on the basis of the nature and the personalities of the people in the relationship. Boundaries, they're great in healthy relationships. I mean, listen, none of us are perfect. So in a healthy relationship, we may be able to tell someone to stop calling us or not to call us after 10 p.m. or that their frequent cancellations are disrespectful, or that you can't keep being their shrink on speed dial. And so you try and set a boundary on those calls, and it works, and there is accountability and hopefully a shift in behavior. Great. We often set boundaries on things that matter to us, things that make us uncomfortable, to set things up in a more healthy manner in a relationship. When boundaries work, they can make a relationship safer, healthier, and stronger. Boundary setting is particularly tricky for people who grew up in abusive, manipulative, antagonistic environments. Boundaries setting was probably never shown to you. And when a child tries to slowly build up their sense of self and ultimately individuate in these environments and grow up and slowly become their own person, they are literally stopped. And as they try to become their own person, they are told that they're being selfish or ungrateful. When a family system is ruled over by a narcissistic parent, self-abandonment is a requirement, and boundaries aren't a thing. So it makes it hard to even begin to understand what to do about boundaries in an adult relationship. But sadly, a lot of folks who are in narcissistic relationships take the boundaries advice to heart and set the boundaries with folks who are not only not going to honor them, but may actually use this boundary setting against you. Listen, we don't set boundaries on everything. One person may set a boundary on late phone calls. Another person may not care or just use the do not disturb setting on their phone. One person may set a boundary on political conversations. Another person may not. Boundaries tell us something about the boundary setter. They tell us about the things that make the boundary setter uncomfortable, perhaps feel unsafe or angry. They tell us about the boundary setter's sensitivities, about the things that matter to them. We learn a lot. So if you do set boundaries with a narcissistic person, you may actually be giving them a sort of playbook on how to mess with you even more. This happens in two ways. First, your boundary setting literally tells them what doesn't work for you. What better way to mess with you than to do those things now that they know you wanted to set a boundary around those? The second way is to pathologize or for them to make fun of the things that you are setting boundaries about. Doing things like calling you sensitive, ridiculous, extra, needy. The third is to turn the boundary into a game. Remember the old stories, maybe it's less so now with kids, but certainly when I was growing up, you remember when we were little kids, you'd sit in the back seat and you'd draw the invisible boundary in the back seat. That sibling, you were just basically telling the sibling to put their tiny pinky finger right over that line, right? Well, that's narcissistic people do something similar to those little kids in the back seat. And they will keep skirting the line of the boundary and testing the boundary and coming just up to the edge of it or just downright messing with it. Because now they know it. And if you react, well, then you are the crazy one. Making the boundary known in a narcissistic relationship is risky. And sadly, so many folks following the ubiquitous boundary advice that is out there have often pretty much given a list of vulnerabilities and things that don't feel good to the narcissistic person, which is the equivalent of giving them your emotional passwords. The narcissistic person will use this to perhaps mock someone, tease you, bother you, perhaps even be vindictive with these sort of knowing your boundaries, all while telling you that what you need and what you want are unreasonable. The self-doubt that most survivors experience means that many people, especially people who've been through these kinds of relationships, simply believe their boundaries are unreasonable and they remain stuck in the harmful cycles of these relationships. It's for this reason that I often warn people against voicing their boundaries and setting clearly communicated external boundaries with a narcissistic person. Instead, I always encourage folks that the focus should be on inner boundaries, giving yourself permission to disengage, to not share sensitive information with the narcissistic person, and holding radical acceptance and radical awareness that these behavior patterns aren't going to change that much. Making your boundaries known is not only going to result in an antagonistic, narcissistic person changing their behavior, it just might make it worse. Remember, boundaries are an inside job. And just like you wouldn't hand your passwords over to someone who could get into your bank or your email or something like that, boundaries, when you set them like this and let the things that matter to you be known, are again the equivalent of giving those emotional passwords that sadly can be weaponized and used against you. Thanks again.